Can Morocco and Algeria finally end their Cold War? For decades, the two countries have lived side by side in a state of deep hostility that's often hovered on the edge of open conflict. And while their confrontation seldom attracts much international attention, it's far from a minor issue. As two of the most significant states in North Africa, with vast territories, large populations and considerable strategic importance, their dispute affects the entire region. However, the Trump administration has suggested that it could negotiate a peace deal between them. But can one of the longest-standing Cold Wars in the entire Arab world really be brought to an end, or are the divisions simply too deep? Hello and welcome, I'm James Ker-Lindsay, and here I take an informed look at international relations, conflict and security. Rivalries are a central feature of international relations. Around the world, many countries are locked in tensions with a neighbour. But what often begins as a specific dispute can, over time, grow into something far deeper. Indeed, as political and military careers are built around it and entire generations grow up knowing nothing else, rivalry can become part of national identity. As a result, these conflicts can often survive leadership changes, regional upheavals, and even shifts in the geopolitical order. And yet, history has also shown us that such tensions are not always permanent. Relations can thaw due to political fatigue, economic costs, or external mediation. The relationship between Morocco and Algeria is a good example of a deep-rooted and long-lasting rivalry. For decades, their ties have been shaped by disputes and ideology, leading to prolonged tensions and even periodic crises. And even though cooperation between the two countries could open up many new possibilities, all efforts to normalise relations have failed. But as the Trump administration now appears interested in becoming involved, could the balance finally be shifting? Or is this simply a hopeless case? The Kingdom of Morocco and the People's Democratic Republic of Algeria dominates North Africa. While Morocco has long Atlantic and Mediterranean coastlines, neighbouring Algeria is Africa's largest country, with vast desert regions stretching deep into the Sahara. In terms of population, Algeria has close to 50 million inhabitants, compared to Morocco's almost 40 million. But while they share deep ties of language and religion as predominantly Arabic-speaking Sunni Muslim societies, the two countries differ in almost every other aspect. For example, Moroccan politics, foreign policy and national identity are ultimately dominated by the country's king, Mohammed VI. In contrast, while Algeria is officially a democratic republic, its political system has traditionally been shaped by the military and security establishment. Likewise, their foreign policy orientations also differ sharply. While Morocco has long maintained close ties with the West, Algeria has historically been a leading voice in the non-aligned movement and today enjoys close relations with Russia. And economically, there are also differences. Whereas Algeria relies heavily on oil and gas exports, Morocco's economy is more diversified, drawing on agriculture, manufacturing and tourism. Taken all together, these differences have had profound effects on how each country views the other. Whereas Moroccan leaders have often seen Algeria as rigid and ideologically driven, Algerian elites have long regarded Morocco's monarchy as conservative, expansionist and pro-Western. But to understand how their rivalry ultimately emerged, we need to look back at their history. Although both countries have strong indigenous Amazigh or Berber roots, the story begins with the arrival of Islam and Arab rule in the 7th century. In Morocco, this contributed to the gradual emergence of a distinct political entity centred on the country's monarchy. By contrast, Algeria came under successive Islamic empires, most notably the Ottomans, without developing a single enduring central state in quite the same way. But the turning point came with the spread of French imperialism in the 19th century. After being conquered by France in the 1830s, Algeria underwent a long and violent process of colonisation and was formally incorporated into the French state. In contrast, Morocco followed a very different path. While it eventually became a French and Spanish protectorate in the early 20th century, it remained nominally independent, with its monarchy preserved. These differences further widened with decolonisation, whereas Morocco regained full sovereignty in 1956, largely through negotiation and political pressure. Algeria only achieved its independence after a brutal 8-year war that left the country traumatised and deeply suspicious of European interference. These sharply different historical and colonial experiences not only profoundly shaped the internal politics and identities of both countries, it also had lasting consequences for relations between them. Tensions between Morocco and Algeria surfaced almost immediately after their independence. Disputes over inherited colonial borders escalated into armed clashes in the early 1960s, with each side accusing the other of having territorial ambitions. As mistrust deepened, compromise became increasingly difficult, especially as leaders in both countries found the growing rivalry useful for reinforcing national identity and political authority. On top of this, Cold War ideological differences further compounded the problem. While Morocco pursued a pro-Western orientation, Algeria positioned itself as a revolutionary, socialist-leaning state and a leading voice of anti-imperialism. But the issue that ultimately came to dominate their relations was Western Sahara. When Spain withdrew from the sparsely populated territory in the mid-1970s, Morocco asserted its claim and seized control. When Algeria backed the Polisario Front, an armed movement seeking independence, diplomatic relations were severed between the two countries. Thereafter, the dispute became the central fault line in bilateral hostility. For Morocco, the territory became a core national cause, despite repeated UN calls for self-determination. For Algeria, support for Polisario was framed as a matter of principle, while also providing a strategic counterweight to its Western neighbour. But while relations briefly improved in the late 1980s, tensions worsened again during the 1990s when cancelled elections in Algeria plunged the country into a devastating civil war. As Morocco grew increasingly concerned about instability on its eastern border and the risk of the spillover of violence, Algeria accused Morocco of supporting insurgent groups. All this would eventually come to a head in 1994 after a terrorist attack in the Moroccan city of Marrakesh. When Morocco imposed visa requirements on Algerian citizens, Algeria responded by closing the land border. And more than 30 years later, it still remains shut. I hope you're finding this interesting. If so, please do give it a like and don't forget to subscribe for regular updates on international relations. Thanks so much, and now back to the video. Since the turn of the millennium, relations between the two countries have remained tense and largely frozen. While the Western Sahara dispute has continued to poison ties, disagreements have also opened up over border security and regional influence. And yet, despite all this, there have been moments when change seemed possible. Diplomatic engagement within regional organisations such as the Arab League and the African Union, alongside periodic calls for greater North African integration, have hinted at the potential for some sort of progress. Ultimately, though, these gestures have failed to overcome the deep-seated mistrust. Instead, tensions have remained. All of this came to a head once again in 2021. Following a series of escalating incidents, including accusations of spying, renewed tensions over Western Sahara, and Morocco's decision to recognise Israel, Algeria broke off diplomatic relations and closed its airspace to Moroccan aircraft. But despite the widespread view that the rivalry is essentially unresolvable, at least for the foreseeable future, there's nevertheless been growing speculation over recent months that some sort of process might in fact be on the horizon. Rising economic pressures and increasing regional and international instability have created a sense that the status quo is no longer sustainable. And with Trump now on a mission to resolve conflicts around the world, his special envoy, Steve Witkoff, has suggested that the administration now wants to help try to resolve this particular standoff. But is this really feasible? On the one hand, a normalisation of relations would certainly bring about major benefits. Reopening borders would transform social and economic life along the frontier and reconnect families and communities separated for decades. Meanwhile, expanded trade could lower costs and boost growth across the region, while new transport links could help turn Algeria and Morocco into an integrated economic space connecting Europe and Africa. To add to all this, new diplomatic and political cooperation would strengthen the regional standing of both countries and reduce the risk of future crises. But against all these potential gains stand deep and persistent obstacles. Most importantly, Western Sahara remains unresolved and is still a highly emotionally charged issue for both countries. On top of this, their geopolitical outlooks continue to differ sharply. Meanwhile, both countries are burdened by political and military elites shaped by decades of rivalry, and domestic opinion has been conditioned by years of hostile rhetoric. All this makes any compromise, let alone bold steps, difficult and risky. External mediation may help create space for dialogue, but it can't be a substitute for the necessary political will to achieve results. So, could Morocco and Algeria finally turn the page? While it's certainly not impossible, for now it seems highly unlikely. While the costs of continued hostility are certainly rising and the benefits of cooperation are becoming harder to ignore, history suggests that entrenched rivalries end only when leaders decide that the future matters more than the past. It needs a willingness to take the steps to resolve the outstanding disputes and reimagine relations. And for now, it seems that this moment hasn't arrived between these two countries. But even if there is a willingness to change, given the depth of tensions that have existed for so long, any thaw, if it does in fact happen, is unlikely to take the form of a sudden, sweeping agreement of the kind usually favoured by Trump. Instead, it's far more likely to emerge through a cautious, incremental process. Ending a Cold War that's lasted almost 7 decades simply doesn't happen overnight. I hope you found that useful. If so, here are some more videos that you might find helpful. Thanks so much for watching, and see you in the next video.